On May 25, 2020, the world watched in horror as a man's final breaths were pressed out of his body on the corner of 38th Street and Chicago Avenue in Minneapolis. His name was George Perry Floyd Jr. He was a father, a brother, a son, and on that day he became a symbol for something much larger than himself: the collision of race, power, and justice in America. His murder at the hands of police officer Derek Chauvin was not just another tragedy. It was a moment that forced the entire world into a conversation it could no longer avoid. The 9 minutes and 29 seconds of video that captured Floyd's death would become some of the most haunting footage in modern history, sparking a trial that shook the foundations of the American justice system. Before we go deeper into this case, I want to pause and ask you, if stories like these matter to you, if shining a light on justice and injustice is important, please take a second right now to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement is what allows us to keep uncovering the truth behind these courtroom battles and real-life tragedies. George Floyd was accused of using a counterfeit $20 bill at a local convenience store. That accusation set into motion a chain of events that escalated beyond reason. Within minutes of police arriving, Floyd was handcuffed, pressed to the ground, and pinned under Chauvin's knee. Despite his repeated pleas, "I can't breathe," the officers did not relent. Bystanders begged them to stop. One teenage girl held her phone steady, recording the scene as tears filled her eyes. Her decision to keep recording would later provide the evidence that prosecutors needed to seek justice. Without that footage, this story may have been dismissed as just another arrest gone wrong. But the video was undeniable. The world saw it. The world heard it, and the world erupted. The days after Floyd's death were unlike anything the United States had seen in decades. Protests filled the streets of Minneapolis and quickly spread across all 50 states, then around the globe. Justice for George Floyd became a rallying cry not just against one officer, but against an entire system accused of being stacked against Black lives. The pressure was on the state of Minnesota. Would they bring charges against Derek Chauvin? And if they did, would the courts finally deliver a conviction in a case involving police brutality? For many, hope was thin. Historically, convictions against officers were extremely rare. But the evidence this time felt different. It was visual, it was public, and it was unforgettable. Derek Chauvin was charged with second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. His trial began in March 2021, less than a year after Floyd's death. From the very start, the trial drew massive attention. Cameras were allowed in the courtroom, making it one of the most widely watched trials in modern history. People tuned in not only to hear the evidence but to witness whether justice would prevail, or whether history would repeat itself. The prosecution opened with a chilling reminder: 9 minutes and 29 seconds. They repeated that number again and again, embedding it into the minds of the jury. It was a countdown of a man's life, a measurement of suffering, and the evidence of a crime. The state's case was simple yet devastating. Chauvin used unreasonable and deadly force on George Floyd, ignoring his cries, ignoring the pleas of bystanders, ignoring even the basic duty of care owed to a human being in custody. The video was played for the jury, and the courtroom fell silent. Jurors watched as Floyd cried out for his mother, his voice breaking, his body weakening, until it went still. The sound of that silence was deafening. One juror later said it was impossible to unsee what they had witnessed. Witness after witness testified. The teenager who recorded the video described how powerless she felt, saying she wished she could have done more. A firefighter who was on the scene told the jury she begged officers to let her help Floyd, to check his pulse, but Chauvin refused. Even law enforcement officials, some of Chauvin's own colleagues, took the stand against him. The Minneapolis police chief testified that Chauvin's actions violated department policy and ethics. This was not just unusual, it was historic. Police officers testifying against one of their own is rare, and in this case it was damning. The defense attempted a different narrative. They argued that Floyd died not from Chauvin's knee, but from underlying health issues, including heart disease and drug use. They suggested that the crowd of bystanders created a hostile environment, that distracted Chauvin from properly handling the arrest. But this defense rang hollow against the video. Medical experts destroyed the argument, testifying that Floyd's death was due to asphyxia caused by the prolonged restraint. One pulmonologist explained that it was as simple as this: Mr. Floyd died because he could not breathe. The trial was not just about Floyd or Chauvin. It was about every name that came before: Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Breonna Taylor. Their cases never saw convictions. Their families never saw justice in the same way. But here, the world was watching, and the pressure on the jury was enormous. As closing arguments approached, the prosecution told the jury that this case was not difficult. "Believe your eyes," they said. "What you saw is what you know." The defense countered, asking jurors to consider the burden of proof, to remember that reasonable doubt must favor the defendant. But the video loomed large, unshakable, undeniable. On April 20th, 2021, the jury returned its verdict. The world held its breath as the judge read the counts one by one. Guilty of second-degree unintentional murder. Guilty of third-degree murder. Guilty of second-degree manslaughter. Derek Chauvin was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. Outside, a crowd that had gathered in anticipation erupted into cheers, tears, and chants of justice for George Floyd. Around the globe, people celebrated not just the conviction, but the sense that accountability was finally possible. But even in that moment of relief, questions lingered. Was this justice or just accountability? George Floyd was gone. No verdict could bring him back. What the world saw as justice, his family still felt as loss. And while this trial set a precedent, it did not erase centuries of pain, mistrust, and systemic racism embedded in policing and the courts. The Derek Chauvin trial became more than a true crime case. It was a turning point in American history. It was about how the justice system handles power, how media shapes perception, and how one video forced accountability where it might never have existed. It was about how one man's life, cut short on a city street, sparked a movement that refuses to be silenced. As we reflect on this case, the question remains: will history see this as the beginning of true change, or just a rare exception in a system still resistant to reform? That answer is still unfolding. But what cannot be erased is the image of George Floyd, a man crying out for breath, a plea that echoed across the globe and changed the world. If you believe these stories need to be told, if you think every courtroom moment deserves to be uncovered and every victim deserves to be remembered, then help us continue this mission. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters. Together, we can hold the powerful accountable, one story at a time.